On Hollywood Hacked, we love a good what if. Picture Indiana Jones. Now swap Harrison Ford for Tom Selleck. Sounds strange? It almost happened. This spotlight episode unearths the alternate casting choices behind your favorite iconic roles, the Hollywood dominoes that nearly fell a very different way. Get ready for some serious cinematic déjà vu. These are the performances you never got to see. In Hollywood, the difference between legend and mere mortal can be the width of a casting call sheet. At the heart of Tinseltown's lore are the stories not just of who landed iconic roles, but who almost did, rewriting the history of cinema with every near miss. Picture this: Tom Selleck as Indiana Jones, whip in hand, fedora low, chasing relics instead of wrangling Hawaiian crime. Due to contractual restraints with Magnum P.I., Spielberg and Lucas had to pass, opening the door for Harrison Ford to step in and become an icon. Yet somewhere in an alternate reel, a mustachioed Indy cracks his own jokes. Sometimes casting changes the pulse of an era. When The Matrix was conceived, producers envisioned Will Smith as Neo, not Keanu Reeves. Smith turned down the role to film Wild Wild West, a decision he'd later call the right kind of wrong. Imagine Neo with Smith's signature swagger and humor. Bullet time might have been a dance move. What if you learned that Forrest Gump's gentle running feet could have belonged to John Travolta? He was first offered the part but declined. Travolta later admitted his regret, but it's hard to imagine anyone besides Tom Hanks imbuing Forrest with such endearing innocence, a twist of Hollywood fate that forever altered pop culture's lexicon. Hold your breath. Al Pacino nearly slipped on Han Solo's swaggering boots. Though now synonymous with Harrison Ford, the Star Wars gunslinger could have been driven by Pacino's intense energy. Reportedly, Pacino found George Lucas's script too confusing and declined. Imagine hokey religions delivered with a Bronx bite. The butterfly effect in casting sometimes spreads beyond obvious choices. Molly Ringwald was nearly cast as Vivian in Pretty Woman before Julia Roberts transformed the role into a career-defining triumph. In early readings, Ringwald brought vulnerability but lacked the raw spark producers craved, leaving room for Roberts' unforgettable smile. Few know that Dougray Scott was originally cast as Wolverine in X-Men before scheduling conflicts with Mission Impossible 2 forced him out. Hugh Jackman, then obscure even to insiders, clawed his way into cinematic immortality, and Scott, by all accounts, is philosophical about relinquishing those adamantium blades. Here's an astonishing one. When The Lord of the Rings searched for its Aragorn, Stuart Townsend was hired and shot scenes for days before being replaced by Viggo Mortensen. Townsend's youthful interpretation contrasted sharply with Mortensen's weathered gravitas, proving sometimes it takes more than costume armor to crown a king. Picture a chilling Gotham, where instead of Heath Ledger's Joker, we get an unrecognizable Robin Williams. Williams pursued the role ferociously, so did Adrian Brody and Steve Carell. Ledger's casting was so controversial critics predicted disaster, until he redefined method himself. Pause for a hidden crossroads. Sally Field auditioned for Princess Leia in Star Wars. Her chemistry with potential Hans read well, but Carrie Fisher ultimately channeled just the right mix of royalty and rebel. Field would go on to other heights, while Fisher became galactic royalty. Steven Spielberg once eyed Christopher Walken and Jeff Goldblum for Dr. Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park, roles that Jeff Goldblum's idiosyncratic cadence ultimately immortalized. Walken's signature oddity might have rendered chaos theory into true madness in Isla Nublar's rain-swept laboratories. Slide across genres, Sean Connery famously turned down Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings, reportedly baffled by Tolkien's world after reading half the script. New Line Cinema even offered him a percentage of gross profits, what would have meant over $400 million. Sir Ian McKellen stepped in, wielding staff and beard into legend. A single phone call saved Die Hard from starring Frank Sinatra as John McClane. A contractual quirk from a 1960s prequel forced producers to offer him first refusal despite his age. Sinatra said no. Bruce Willis said yes. Action movies would never sound quite so wisecracking again. Consider one of animation's greatest pivots. Jim Carrey was in talks to voice Shrek before Mike Myers stepped up with his now famous Scottish brogue, after recording nearly all his lines in a Canadian accent and starting over late in production. Carrey's version remains locked in storyboards, Shrek as chaos incarnate. If you love these Hollywood secrets, hit like and subscribe for more eye-opening reveals from Hollywood Hacked.